Hi everybody. I wanted to give you a very quick introduction to this video because I want to explain what the deal is. Last year in 2021 I shot two videos. It was basically two-parter that explained the process of starting peas in rain gutters and then planting them out in your garden. At the time I promised that I would put the two videos together so that everything was in one place. Guess what I forgot to do? Until today. I figured out how to put the two videos together, edited out a few things that didn't need to be in there, and now it's all in one place for you. I hope you'll enjoy it, and please do give gutter peas a try. Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. I'm out in the vegetable garden today, and you know it's very blustery and there's some rather frightening looking clouds coming this way. So we'll see how much I can accomplish today. For my March 14th garden column, I wrote about gutter peas. And what that means is starting your pea seeds in rain gutters of all things, and then at planting time just sliding them out of the gutters into a trench in a bed, and it is so easy. The funny thing is I've shot videos about this over the last 3 years, but I've never written a column about it, so I thought it was high time I did that. So let me explain a little bit more about this method, and then what I'm going to do today is get some pea seeds started in them, and then we'll go from there. I first heard about gutter peas while watching some gardening videos on YouTube, and you know how that goes. You watch one video and then something else catches your eye and something else does, and next thing you know it's an hour later. Well, I stumbled onto some videos made by different allotment gardeners in Britain, and they kept talking about gutter peas, and I thought, that sounds disgusting. What is that? So it turns out a lot of folks in Britain have problems with mice eating their pea seeds and young sprouts. And so what they do is they start their peas in these rain gutters, and usually they'll put them, once they've planted the seeds, into a greenhouse or inside a sunny window, something like that. Let the plants get growing, because you want to have a lot of greenery and a good mat of roots. And that is the secret to being able to slide them out. But mainly what they were trying to do is to let the peas get established enough to where they're not going to be bothered by the mice. So I thought, well, that's an interesting prospect. Now the reason I like gutter peas is because we have a lot of quail in our garden, and they're not mice, but they do like to nibble on freshly sprouted pea seeds. It's quite annoying. So that's one reason that many years ago I started my pea seeds indoors, and that has been an annual ritual. But I use a 72 cell flat, and you can imagine how tedious it is to carefully remove one seedling at a time, dig an individual hole, plant the individual seedling, and then repeat that 71 more times. So when I saw how they also could slide all of the seedlings out very quickly, I thought, yeah, I've got to try that. So this is my 4th year that I'll be doing gutter peas. And I've figured out a few new things last year that have made me more successful at getting them all to slide out of the gutter. So I'll share that with you today. Now let's talk a little bit about the gutters. So they are made out of vinyl. They're very easy to find at home centers, and they're not expensive. They come in 10-foot lengths, and we generally plant peas in 8-foot long raised beds. So what we did is we cut each of two 10-foot long gutters into roughly 4-foot long pieces. And that way they're easier to manage. And also, since I'm going to be babying them for a few weeks before I plant them out in the garden, this is a much easier size to have inside our sliding glass door. So that's what we've done. You know, you can buy end caps for them, but I'm being cheap. You know, these cost, the 10-foot lengths cost about $5 each, and I bought 2. And I think the end caps are like about $5 each, and I thought, I am not spending that money. So what I did is I took some cardboard and just cut little inserts, and even though they don't fill this area of the gutter, I'm only putting about 2 inches of soil into the gutters to start the peas. So these will still prevent any soil from falling out the ends. So I just want to clarify the materials that I'm using. Our favorite variety of pea is Green Arrow, which is a shelling pea. But it doesn't matter what kind of pea you're growing. You can use the snap peas, the edible pod peas. All of those will work in this method. Boy, I would pick a stormy day to do this, but my goal is to have the seeds coming up before the end of this video, so we shall see how that goes. I'm just using a regular potting mix for this. It doesn't have anything fancy in it. And I have pre-moistened it, so I'm going to make a nice muddy mess here. And again, I'm just going to fill this gutter with about 2 inches of the potting soil. It's much easier to pre-moisten the mix first instead of trying to water later, because sometimes the water just doesn't want to get absorbed into it. Now my goal is to plant a double row of peas in each of the gutters, and that works really well. That's not too much. And we'll end up with a whole lot of peas when the time comes, and that'll be great. I love fresh peas. And you just can't beat homegrown. Okay, so there's one. And you know, I think I'm going to plant this right away just because I keep looking at the clouds and they look, yeek, very ominous. So I'll go ahead and plant this so you can see how it goes. And then hopefully I can get the other 3 planted before the sky lets loose. One thing I neglected to mention is that I'm using an organic potting soil. That is really important to me when I'm starting edible crops. So I just wanted to mention that. So I'm spacing these 2 sets of peas 2 inches apart roughly, maybe 1.5 inches. It's not going to make a huge difference. I've got a little sparrow singing to me over my shoulder here. So once I put all these peas in place, I'm going to poke them in with my finger. That's the easiest way to do it. And it's very quick. I'm pushing the seeds about 1/2 inch down. Maybe I can do this with both hands here and be faster. And then I'll sprinkle on a little bit more potting soil just to cover the planting holes. Okay, so there is 1 gutter done. 3 to go. Sky still looks ominous, but I'm going to keep going. If you hear a loud crack, I hope you'll come to my funeral. One thing I wanted to mention with pea seeds is if you ever come across one that's just like half a seed, just toss it because it is not going to germinate. Well, it just started sleeting outside, so I decided I was going to move into our little greenhouse, at least out of the cold wind and the weather for the moment. But this is the last one that I need to plant, and then I can make a dash to the house with them. Now, one other thing I'm going to do before I can call them completely planted is to sprinkle a very light layer of finely milled sphagnum moss. That is an organic material that inhibits the growth of damping off disease, which is a horrible fungus that can kill off seedlings in nothing flat. It's very inexpensive. I use a brand called No Damp Off. It's really very economical, and it's going to last a very long time for me, so I heartily recommend doing that. And then when I put these inside our sliding glass door for a few days until they germinate, I'm going to put a little layer of clear plastic to increase the humidity, just like you would if you were going to use a plastic dome or a plastic bag around a seedling flat in order to help the seeds germinate. The peas took about 8 days to germinate. We had them in the house for a while, and I started the hardening off process very quickly, and that's where you slowly but surely acclimate the plants to the outdoor temperatures and the intensity of the sunlight. So the way it goes is this: the first day you put them out for an hour, you move them back indoors. Second day 2 hours, move them back indoors. Third day 3 hours, and so on for about a week's time. And so I've gotten the hardening off process done, but it has just been too darned cold here. A few nights ago it got down to 24. I mean, come on. And so, I've just been biding my time. The other thing is I started them a little earlier than we normally do because I felt like I planted them too late last year. Well, I think I went to the other end of the spectrum this year because I started them on March 7th. I think they should be started at least a week later, maybe 2 weeks even, but we have really nice plants. The goal is to get a lot of nice greenery, but especially a mat of roots to help them slide out of the gutters and into the trench in our raised bed. Now, our raised beds are 8 feet long, and these are just under 4 feet each. And so I've got 4 of them to do 2 rows in my bed. This is going to be the pea bed, and the first thing I need to do is to make 2 trenches on either side of the length of the bed. And I like to use a hoe for that because it's actually about the same proportion as the height and width of the rain gutter. So that should work out really well. Now I want to just try out the depth of the trench by putting a gutter in there. And it looks like, based on where the soil level is within the gutter, it is deep enough in the trench to accommodate them. So now I'm going to take off the end caps of the gutters in preparation for planting. Even though the potting soil inside the gutters is already quite damp, I'm going to water them again because that is one of the keys to getting the plants to slide out of the gutters and into the trench. That was something I learned a couple years ago, and it really made a difference. Okay, I'm just holding them at quite an angle and shaking them, waiting for them to get started. Here we go, I can feel it. Come on, you guys. There we go. It's like you really have to shake them at the beginning and then they go in. Now, is that quick planting or what? I just have to adjust this one because I stretched it out a little too far. And then the next step is just to push the soil into the trench alongside the plants and their roots, because you don't want the roots exposed to the air. And then just firm it in around the plants. If this wind would stop blowing, I would really be enjoying my day. And I'm going to water them in one more time to really make sure that the soil makes good contact with the roots. You know, wind can really be a drying factor, so it is very important not to let the plants dry out. The next step is to support the pea plants. And you know, I don't care what a seed packet says. Some of them say they do not require any kind of staking. Well, I disagree. And it's better to be safe than sorry, right? So I always support my peas. Now what I'm going to do, and this is something I've done in the past 3 years, is I'm going to make a little support lattice from a bunch of prunings from our fruit trees. It's free materials, why not? Now something else I should mention is if you're going to put up a wire grid for the peas to climb or a netting of some sort with stakes, I'd recommend putting those in place before you plant the peas. I think that's the safest thing to do. But I'm going to do a lattice framework and I'm going to put them on the outside of either row, and it should work great and it'll look really cool. And again, it's free. One of the things I like about doing the structure on the outside of each row is that it will keep the quail away from the plants as well. That's one of the reasons I do this method and start the seeds indoors, is because I'm trying to get them to a size where they can fend for themselves. So this is another way to keep the quail away from the young plants. To make a lattice, what you do is you put stakes in on an angle like this and push them down pretty low. And I'm going to do them all facing the same direction. And then come back and do the other direction. So just to show you what I'm talking about, there will be ones that go this way. So I'm putting them maybe about 10 inches or so apart, the ones that are going all in this direction. And just like when I did this for the very first time a few years ago, I'm winging it. You have to kind of put in a few, look at it, make sure that you've got it right. The other thing I can do as this comes together is I can use a pruner's to make everything uniform in height, but I don't want to do that until I have the structure all figured out. I've had some stops and starts with this project because I realized I really needed to move in the stakes closer to this row of peas, so just on the outside of the drip line. And then Bill came and helped for a bit because he can do this weaving really quickly. I stumble over it and try to figure out which one goes in, which one goes out. So now that it's all in place, what I'm going to do is shorten the sticks to maybe about here. And we're also going to weave in some branches horizontally just to make sure the tops of these branches don't pull apart during the season. Okay, the trellis is more or less finished. I think I'm going to put something down on each end, and then that's it. But now you know everything you should know about growing gutter peas. It is the coolest thing. I realize it's not for everybody, but if you have to start your seeds indoors ahead of time because of birds in the garden or weather conditions, this is a slick way to do it because you can plant so many seedlings at once. Thanks so much for watching today, everybody. I'm going to get inside out of this wind. Happy gardening.